Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Pinehurst Village Council for July 9th, 2024. We'll begin as we usually do with an invocation by Reverend Tudor Foley, who has joined us in the past, and we will follow with a being led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Lacelle Romero, an 11-year-old sixth grader who's homeschooled at the Lake Forest Christian Academy. Reverend Foley.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we ask that you bless our mayor and this council as they represent the people and community of Pinehurst. Grant that they may have a spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, so that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices as they consider the needs and concerns of our village. We thank you for their service and the time they give for your community, and that you bless each member of this council and their families. In your holy name, amen.
Amen. Lacelle, please come forward. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay. As we traditionally do, let's move on to reports, and we'll begin with the village manager. Jeff?
Thank you, Patrick. I don't have anything to report today.
Okay. I just have a couple of items. One, I want to compliment the staff. The July 4th parade success, followed on U.S. Open success, was a great 1-2 punch. It was an enjoyable day and went off very smoothly. Thank you very much. Though my dog did not win again, so I just have to accept that. I also wanted to mention something that I stumbled onto, which probably many residents are aware of, but I was not, that if you're leaving town for on vacation, you can let the police department know, and they will make a vacation check while you're gone. Now, I don't know why I didn't know this, but I didn't, and so compliments to our police department, and I encourage residents who want to take advantage of that to contact them and let them know when you'll be gone. Lastly, there was a post-U.S. Open impact story in the pilot, and there were some quotes that are worth highlighting. One is from Maxie's Grill, the fellow who owns it right around the corner here, who actually came here and testified before us, appeared before the council, when we were putting together the ordinances and had an impact on what we ended up adopting. And I just wanted to read briefly what he said. He could not imagine the week of the championship going better. Every day was busy for him. Logistically, it was done perfectly. Again, thank you for the staff for all that. He was very pleased with it, and he said, luckily, we don't have to do it every year, but he was happy. And then there was another quote from one of the downtown retail merchants. The store is Monkeys, and Veronica Lloyd is the owner, and she said that Monkeys sold out of the custom pieces it had for the golf championship, including straw hats, cardigans, and jewelry. So I guess that's a happy retail owner when you sell out with everything. So I mentioned those things, and I'll turn to Dr. Morgan.
Thank you. I'm going to reiterate some things that you brought up there, Pat. First of all, July 4th, I thought it went great. Decorations, we had the flags and everything for that the village put out, fantastic on there, and fireworks and the parade, lots of fun. So good old Americana here, and brought it back to Pinehurst, so I appreciate that much. I'm also getting the same sort of reports. I walk through the village and talk to various business owners. Very similar to what the pilot had reported. You have some folks that just knocked it out of the park, and other folks that maybe didn't knock it out of the park as much, but certainly did better. And it was a consistent theme that the preparation from the village was excellent. And so compliments again, Doug Willardson, you led a tremendous thing, but you got a lot of great people behind you, and so a super team effort, and it was very evident, so great job.
Councilman Taylor.
Heard all the same sentiments regarding the open, and is same, I wouldn't call it mixed, but certainly some merchants did better than others. Some opted to alter their hours and stay open late. I would say on balance, they did better. I think they will probably repeat that, maybe even extend that, because their perception also of the social district was that it ran very smoothly, and that there were few, if any, reported incidents of any problems, and they were in favor of that. So again, and in having been away for most of the last 8 or 9 days and talking to both golfers in particular and just the general population who happened to watch, they thought Pinehurst looked terrific. It was a uniform sentiment that they were wondering how long it would take us to get back to normal. And I said, well, I actually flew back in on Wednesday night after the tournament, and you would not have known downtown that we had done anything. Obviously, out on the course, they're still doing a lot of work, but so that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Ficklin.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Councilman Farrell.
Thank you, Pat. Excuse me. A couple things. The 4th of July parade, I was amazed at the attendance. I think there was more people that I've seen there than in the last 20 years minimum. I particularly enjoyed the pet parade. I thought first place should go to the gentleman with the cage of the parakeet, I think it was, who came in to the end. Pat, sorry, I think you have honorable mention, you and Dixie, but I think he beat you out. The second thing is I attended the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee yesterday, met again. Don't meet that frequently, but they discussed the pathways in Pinehurst, and particularly the planning that's being done for the pathways that we may be able to accommodate in number 6, which is pretty important. The other thing we discussed is briefly that Linden Road sort of took a beating with some of the infrastructure that was put in there recently, and may need some attention, quite honestly. But I also want to note that Tom Campbell, the chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, has been working in that capacity for now 22 years. And he's, I think his term expires at the end of August, and I think is worthy to note that Tom has been working on walkways and pedestrians and greenways for that period of time. Quite the accomplishment. So kudos to Tom. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move on to a motion regarding the approval of the consent agenda. All items listed below are considered routine or have been discussed at length in the previous meetings and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion will be held unless requested by a member of the Village Council. So the items on the consent agenda are approval of the Village Council meeting minutes of the regular meeting of June 25th, the work session minutes of June 25th, and the closed session minutes of June 25th. So I'll entertain a discussion or a motion.
I move to approve all the items listed and considered routine on the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Adopted? Okay. Let us go on to item 5, which is public comments. There was a sign-in sheet at the back if you, that we're going to bring forward in a moment, and then we'll call people up and they can address the council. If you haven't signed up, that's okay. When we're through going through the people who have, we'll ask those who would still like to make comments that they may come forward and also address the council. So, okay, and direct your comments to the council, not questions, please, and try to stay within the sort of 3-minute time frame. All right. Oh, yes. We have Trish Christina from Oak Lane. Go right ahead, Chris.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and address you today. I have some names on a petition. I have also what I have written. And I have a number of pictures that I would love to share with you of the property around our area. And I don't know whether I have to go through you, Shannon, or just hand them to you if you would just have an opportunity to look at them. We're here to discuss the rising deer population in the area of Oak Lane, Marion Circle, Idlewild Road, and Bobolink. If I had reached out to folks in Clarendon Gardens, I probably could have gotten some of their support as well. The deer are damaging yards, gardens, plants, hollies. We personally had 6 deer in our garden this week, destroying the mandevillas, eating the creeping jennies. All the sweet potato vines are gone, which there's pictures of them, which we blocked by patio chairs in front of our deck. Mandevilla one day had red flowers and the next day, gone. We must wrap our hollies with netting, our euonymus as well. Our neighbors are using tent covers, wire fences around plants to protect them, using sprays, fabric sheets, and urine. The herd of the deer are bedding in the backyards of pine straw, digging into it looking for mushrooms and food sources, leaving a mess as well as deer droppings, causing concerns for deer ticks and potential Lyme disease is a real concern. One neighbor has had ticks on his socks after being in the backyard. One of our residents is here next to us, was chased by a doe last week as she was walking home. We have concern for the traffic accidents in the area are very realistic, as one animal was hit on the corner of Linden and St. Andrews last week, I believe, might have been the week before. The neighborhood takes pride in our homes and our yards and our gardens, and the money that is lost is one thing. The frustration of dealing with the deer is another. We have a motion light detector in our yard hoping to deter them. Comes on several times in the night, waking us. We get up to chase them because they've come for dessert, which happens to be our flowers. Neighbor Roger, who's sitting here, goes out every night and sprays to see if he can't keep the roses alive for another day. We urge you to investigate and deal with this growing population of deer, finding ways to manage the size of the herds that's growing. More fawns are being seen daily. In the recent article of the Pilot, Carthage is looking into bow hunting to deal with the problem. Is that something we could consider having done, or tranquilize them and relocate them? Thank you for your time. We look forward to your response and your thoughts. And I have the names of other people in our area. Shannon, do you want that?
Please, yes. And Trish, could I just ask you, your neighborhood you're specifically talking about is where?
Oak Lane, Marion Circle, Idlewild, Bobolink. It's all off St. Andrews.
St. Andrews, okay.
So if you turn right onto Bobolink, it goes down to Idlewild. Marion Circle's tucked back in there. So it's Lake Forest, Appowamus, tucked in there. Okay. I mean, I could have gone, tell everybody on St. Andrews and Lake Forest, it's not just us.
But please do contact your neighborhood advisory committee member, and so that they're aware of this situation. If you go to the website, you'll see the neighborhoods are drawn with specific representatives for each neighborhood, and I'm not precisely sure where yours falls on the chart, but they ought to be aware of your concerns. Also.
As in the community watch?
No,
or
neighborhood advisory committees.
Okay.
All right.
I didn't see that on the website. I'm sure I can find it, but thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Please do, thank you. Before we go on, I know that the issue that just brought up has a history of it, and I don't know, I think, Jack, you might have been here when it was once discussed. I don't know if there's anything you want to share with the council.
This has been an ongoing problem, quote, problem for years. And the village conducted an extensive deer study in 2014. I think it was conducted in 2013. The report was given to council in January of 2014. It's a very extensive report, and it's on the website, I believe. And you can look up the report that was created. At that time, there were 6 recommendations from the report. One of the recommendations had to do with culling. Of course, the other recommendations were we should make sure we do not feed wildlife, and some other the plantings of vegetation that they don't like as much, and so forth. So there was 6 different recommendations. The council decided at that point in time to approve 5 of the 6 recommendations and not the culling recommendation. So you'll see a fairly extensive report, and that may help you just make some good decisions and or understand what's been happening in the past.
Matter what you plant anymore. They shouldn't be eating hollies, and they are.
Yeah, well, when it's dry like this, deer tend to forage for whatever they can, to be honest with you. So
All right, well,
anyway, that's the background of the deer study, and it is on the website, so that may be of some value and help.
well, thank you, Jack. I figured you knew a little history on that. All right, we will move. Oh, is there anyone else who would like to speak now? That was the only one who actually had signed up. Is there any individual who has something else they like to mention, or on this topic or another topic? I see 2 hands. We'll start with Ms. Romero.
I am in that same neighborhood. I'm over by Lake Forest Drive Southwest. I think I'm a couple streets over from yours. I'm trying to think. Every night I probably have 1 or 2 deer. I'm surrounded by hollies. I have roses. None of them have gotten eaten. So it sounds like you've got maybe a localized little family that comes through. I get about 6 that I see walking down the road, and they keep passing. I will say that they have been more hungry with the last month of dried up vegetation and lack, but I think that talking about bow hunting is a little bit more severe. I think we do need to consider that the cutting down of forests around our area has driven the animals into smaller and smaller packs, and you have to also consider that, you know, the more land we cut down and we allocate to commercial building or more residence or apartment buildings, the more you're going to have these animals driving to find somewhere to seek haven to. And unfortunately, we do have a beautiful neighborhood that many of them travel to and seek, you know, seek protection, but I have not found on Lake Forest Drive Southwest. I'm friends with a lot of the neighbors there. I have not heard of as much destruction. So I think it might be a more localized, they found a nice little spot to go to. But like I said, I've got many of flowers, figs, roses, hollies, and none of them have actually been touched. With ivy, actually they tend to go through ivy. They did last winter, but they haven't touched any of it. So I think I haven't seen the same extensive damage on that side of the neighborhood.
Thank you. I saw another hand up. Please come forward. State your name.
Laura Payne. I just wanted to confirm that I'm the walker, and I have a dog. I walk every day around 6 miles, and I should not be chased by wildlife, and I am. And the deer in particular, this particular doe, and I understand they're having their fawns right now, but she chased me 2 houses and probably within 6 feet of me, stood up, did a screech, ran across the street, stood up, did another screech. I mean, I was terrified at the moment and realized afterwards that I should not have turned my back on the doe. And then when I was out walking a few days later, I was followed again. And I don't know if it was the same one. It was a different location. We do have a big bamboo forest, and they do congregate in there. We have had several lots taken out and built on. So I know that they've lost some of their local feeding areas and homes where they were. But I guess my thing is that I just feel like I should be able to walk without fear. And it was a pretty terrifying time. So that's all. That's my share.
Ma'am, I didn't catch your name.
Ms. Payne. Was it?
Laura Payne.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other people who have a desire to speak before the council? No. Hearing none, we will move on to resolutions. Okay. The item before us is discussion and consideration of Resolution 24-26, which is changes to the policy on the administration of the position classification and pay plan. Okay, there she is. Angie Cantor, who heads Human Resources, will take us through this. Go right ahead, Angie.
Okay. So annually, I bring to you our recommendations for changes to our position classification and pay plan. So this year, we used a different consultant to gather information and data for us. We used Central Pines Regional Council to help us with this study this year. And they handled it very similarly to how it's been handled in the past. They evaluated the full and part-time positions that are in the departments indicated. It was only a partial study. They also reviewed our policy, and they gathered data for us on the particular positions that we were reviewing. After all of that, we started in January. It took us until, I guess, the end of June, 1st of July. We finally finalized it, and the recommendations that we're making are listed here in this memo. So we want to move several positions. Telecommunications 1 and 2, we want to move each of those up 1 grade, and those positions are in the police department. We added a fleet service apprentice last year in the budget for recruiting purposes, just for opportunity to give us some leeway should somebody leave in the fleet department, since it's a small department. And this year you actually approved to add head count. So we've added an apprentice position to potentially add additional head count in our fleet department. We want to move the police officer up a grade, our code compliance specialist up 1 grade, senior police officer, master police officer, and sergeant up 1 grade. And we also are adding the stormwater technician, which was approved in the budget as well. But we're adding that to the pay grade officially. Any questions on those?
Just one, Angie. If the position are upgraded relative to pay grade, does that imply an automatic increase to that point in that new pay grade for these individuals that are affected?
It does, and that's in the policy. If they're increased 1 grade, they would get a 5%.
And to what extent will that impact our 2025 budget?
Well, we have budgeted. I did budget for this study, okay. So yeah.
I should have known that. Sorry.
Right. I had some of the data early on, so I do budget for it for July, and then it's in my budget. But then Dana takes all of that money out of my budget and divvies it up for the positions that were approved for increases.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But that is not an increase in the pay grade to which they're being elevated. So if someone's going from pay grade 21 to 22, they're getting a step up, but people in pay grade 22 already are not.
Yes. So anybody going from 20 to 21 will get a 5% bump in pay. And then the other recommendation, which is in the policy, is we move the pay grades by COLA. And
Right.
all employees get a COLA or a portion of COLA.
In that pay.
Correct.
Second question, based on pay grade, we are effectively equating the stormwater technician to master police officer. I'm assuming because this was done with a consultant that we're collecting comparable pay data from other places, and that's just where it falls. But from a training standpoint or an experience standpoint, how does that person compare?
Well, they're 2 different jobs. I can't speak a whole lot to the stormwater technician, but when we were reviewing the stormwater technician position, Mike and I and Megan Skellerup took a look at that, and we looked at other places that had a stormwater technician, and then we felt that was the grade that made sense to slot the stormwater technician. As far as how does it compare, I don't know I'm not as well versed on a stormwater technician, how it compares to the police officer position. I mean, they're two different positions.
Let me
Yeah.
maybe ask the question differently. Is the person that we would hire into that position an experienced person that's been working somewhere else? Is this more an entry-level person that we are adding? I remember the discussion of adding this FTE.
Right. So we would want somebody with some experience, certainly, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to have 30 years or 25 years of experience. They're probably going to be a step up from an entry level. They're not going to be an entry-level person. I would say maybe intermediate.
Thank you.
Dr. Morgan? Barb? Oh, Jack, go ahead.
I have one other question. Number one, I'm very happy to see us move the pay grades of the police department, and public safety is extremely important, as you well know. My question is related to attachment C, which is the minimum maximum positions of part-time people, if you will. We have minimum and maximum pay for part-time positions. These are hourly pays, I assume.
Correct.
When someone comes on as a part-time person, how do we determine where between minimum and maximum they should be paid? Because it's a fairly broad difference between the minimum and the maximum in some cases.
So it is a 50% spread, which is exactly what our spread is on our regular pay table. We do look at their experience. It depends. I'll give you an example of a camp counselor. If we have an 18-year-old just graduated from high school, wants to be a camp counselor for the summer, they're most likely going to make the minimum of the pay grade. But if we have a school teacher who wants to work during the summer, who has experience with kids, we're probably going to pay them a little bit further. And we look at what our current camp staff are making. We compare the experience level, and that's how we determine what we're going to pay.
So it's somewhat subjective and depends upon the manager of that department. Is that correct?
Well, it is subjective to a certain
Subjective
degree.
in the sense that you look at the background. It isn't
Correct.
arbitrary. I didn't
Correct.
mean
It's
that
not.
way.
Yeah. It's not. It is not arbitrary, and we do try to maintain internal equity
Okay,
as
thank
well.
you.
You're welcome.
Angie, what is the total number of people impacted by this? And two, how many of our total workforce did the consultant analyze?
I don't have that number available, but I will get that. I will get that for you.
Okay. Yeah, share it with the whole council.
The number of people impacted and the number of people who were reviewed. Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Did I see? Do you have something, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number either. I'm trying to do some rough math in my head, but we were probably talking about on the order of 40.
So it's about a
third of our
fourth of our
positions, about
workforce.
40 people.
Yeah. And is
For
it
reviewed.
for reviewed? And do we do this sort of annually? We get the ones next year that we didn't get this year and so forth. So it's a continuing review.
That is typically what we do. So each position is reviewed no less than once every 3 years.
No less than once every 3 years.
You could be reviewed more often if your responsibilities change. We could very well review your position back-to-back years.
All righty. I will, hearing no other questions, will entertain a appropriate motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2426, changes to the policy on the administration of the position classification and pay plan.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 7, other business. I'll ask any of my colleagues while I find.
I'd like to address some of the deer stuff that was just mentioned. I think sometime in the working, in our working session that we look at that. I think that in the past they had was a deer task force on there, and that you referenced, Jack. I'm certainly not a deer expert, but I will tell you that I come from a pretty big family from Ashboro in that area, and all my aunts and uncles and grandparents all had gardens, and when deer started eating it, that was a problem because that's how we fed the family, and you had to manage the deer. So the balance needs to be there. And when I'm hearing stories about nuisance inside the city limits, that's a problem. And we have a house that's right on the Pinehurst city limits, and we're abutting a forest, and we do have deer around there. But I still get peaches and every year, and my hostas grow and things like that. So they're not necessarily eating my garden because I got enough to eat elsewhere. So I don't know the answer, but I think we need to get a group together to see if we can figure something out here.
Let's
I
take a
would
look.
totally agree with that. I can
Okay.
tell you stories from Clarendon Gardens, including there's nothing left in my yard, but we're now finding diseased deers that are, we've even found dead deer in our yard. I have been on walks and been within 30 feet of a coyote chasing a deer. It is a serious problem.
Personally, I've dealt with people with Lyme disease. There's a lot of musculoskeletal issues associated with that also. So hearing people talk about, hey, my flowers got eaten, some people may not take that as a big issue. Again, I do think it's a big issue, and I'm concerned about the health and safety of our residents here. So I think at some point in time in the near future on a work session, let's bring this topic up, and let's also bring some folks who know a heck of a lot more about deer than I do.
Why don't we look forward to, to September? Because we have a crowded agenda for the next two meetings right now. But that'll give us some time to one, review the previous study, and two, to find the more current, shall we say, expert data that can talk with us, and we can look at options. And maybe I'll ask Dr. Morgan and Barb to sort of take a little lead here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Happy to do it. I've got no other business. Appreciate it.
I would
Okay,
just
thank you.
tack on to that, that common sense tells you that the number of natural predators have diminished substantially. The winters are mild enough, they're not going to starve to death, so the population almost has to go up. I'm not sure I would see us doing bow hunting, but there may need to be, and I'm familiar in a suburban environment with other methods of culling that are done almost every year. And I suspect that's where we will have the direction we'll have to go, because buying them bus tickets isn't going to work. So
I would be curious as to what our neighboring communities are doing, because they must have to address the same issue. And I did notice the article on Carthage recently in the paper. So we've got a little research to do, and we can figure out how to address this.
I think it might be wise, if we can't find it, I'll send a copy of the deer study to you guys if you'd like, because I think you'll find that 90% of it is still valid. So that may be of some help.
no reason to doubt that.
Pardon me?
I don't have any reason to doubt that. I suspect it will all be considered valid, but
Right.
I would like, if there's someone from Department of Natural Resources or whatever who could help us in that regard, I think that'd be useful.
I got a funny feeling that the findings will be very similar in the sense that deer are deer, and I don't imagine that they have evolved much since the study was made. But the question I would have is what decisions were made based upon that report, because we're having a problem still, so it leads me to believe that the decisions were not effective in having a long-term solution.
Well,
So,
at
we'll look
least one item out of that report, which was feeding of wild animals, was passed as an ordinance to hopefully discourage people from attracting deer, even though they may like what they look like in their backyard. Their neighbors may not be as enamored with that. So, that ordinance was passed, I think, as a result of that study. Is that correct?
I think tangentially this touches on code enforcement, but I don't think it's going to be, the solution isn't primarily going to be a code enforcement issue. It's going to be some step beyond that.
Okay, sounds like we have a plan.
Thank you.
And we'll regroup in specifically in September to it'll be on the agenda in September. In the meantime, we'll work up some details and do some research. All right, thank you. We are moving on to other business. If anybody has other business, I'll ask them to speak up. Otherwise, I'll go on a couple of things I might have here. Anybody here on the Dr. Morgan, Jeff? No, John? Jack?
I think we're going to discuss the
Right. We'll discuss that later.
ever-present traffic circle. And
Yeah, I've got two things to mention. One, I did notice an article in the paper, so I got curious about what do we do. It was an article about Southern Pines was raising fees for developers. don't know if anybody caught that. And curious, where does their new fee stand vis-à-vis our fees? And
I don't think they were impact fees, which are not allowed. I think it was utility connection fees. Is that
Yes.
correct?
They also didn't cite what the previous fee had been. They cited only, if I read it correctly, the new proposed fees.
Well, I have not had the opportunity to review the article. If it was utility connection fees, then we don't have a comparable fee.
we don't have one at all.
I would say that the county commissioners debated the same thing as part of adopting this year's budget. They opted, I believe, not to increase the fees, although they did discuss some fairly significant increases.
But again, I think that fee was related to utility connection.
Well, it
fees.
was utility fees for developers.
There's a difference between that and impact fees, which I'm not sure an NC allows, to tell you the truth.
These both went under the moniker of system development fees, or they were basically connection fees.
Right.
All righty. Other item I was going to raise is that the the next council meeting, we will be discussing something we had talked about doing at this council meeting, which would be the website analytics, and we will have on there also the agenda of the code enforcement, and we're expecting a presentation from Oakley Collier at the next meeting. So for those of you who are trying to crystal ball what might be coming up in at our next meeting, those are 3 items. Any other topics anyone wants to raise? Other business? Okay. We are on item number 8, which is a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the regular meeting.
Second.
Motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so adopted. Why don't we take a 5-minute break? Come back at 7:15.